Hello everyone, I'm Ankit and you're watching StudyIQ IAS English channel. Now last week, India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, he had a phone call with the Foreign Minister of Afghanistan, Amir Khan Muttaqi. And this was the first ministerial level conversation happened between the governments of India and Afghanistan after 2021. So that is why it has been called historic. But the big question is that we are going to address in our today's discussion is actually why is India engaging or talking with Taliban? Because you understand historically India has always been against Taliban taking power in Afghanistan, and this is for ideological and moral reasons. So in that regard, why this conversation between India and Taliban regime is actually happening? What are the reasons behind it? Let us try to find out in our today's discussion. Now, the context of this discussion is that India talking to Taliban should not be seen as an official endorsement of the Talibani regime in Afghanistan. Rather, this is India's calibrated engagement, which is focused on ensuring regional security, particularly from Indian perspective, in the wider region of Afghanistan and its neighborhood. Now, to understand why is India talking to Taliban, we need to go back in time, specifically to the year 2021, because this was the year when US abruptly evacuated from Afghanistan. It eliminated its presence in Afghanistan by taking everything from its armed forces members to every of its diplomatic missions. They evacuated in large numbers from Afghanistan. So this actually created a void in Afghanistan, because you understand US had been present for 20 years in Afghanistan and dealt with each and every aspect of the Afghani society, from ensuring democracy to controlling security related aspects. So from India's point of view, the American presence in Afghanistan effectively ensured that Afghani territory was not used particularly against India's interest. So that is why US evacuating from Taliban or from Afghanistan created a strategic void for India. Now, this was the key reason why India did not engage with Taliban earlier. So when Taliban, it took over the controls of Afghanistan after US evacuated in 2021, India naturally, it responded to such a measure with a caution. As few days after the takeover, that is after US left and Taliban took over the controls of Afghanistan, New Delhi, it withdrew its ambassadors and diplomatic staff from Kabul, and it also suspended direct engagement with the Talibani regime that was at the helm of affairs in Afghanistan. So this was India's natural reaction to the control of Taliban, that it withdrew its diplomatic presence and eliminated any direct engagement with the regime. But let us understand what has changed from then till now that has allowed India to engage with Taliban. Now, you have to understand, traditionally both India and Afghanistan, they have a very close relationship, and this was prevailing in the years except for the time Taliban was in power, even earlier, that is between 1996 and 2001, because India back then saw Taliban as a proxy that promoted Pakistan's strategic interest and did not allow the interest of India to prevail in the region. Most importantly, we all know Taliban actually played a key role in ensuring that the IC-814 aircraft that belonged to India, which was coming from Kathmandu to New Delhi, it was hijacked and ultimately it was taken to Kandahar airport that was located in Afghanistan, and you ensured, and you can see from this image, it was Taliban fighters that guarded this aircraft and prevented India's special forces to attack and free this hostage aircraft from the terrorists that had taken this aircraft as a hostage. So this effectively defined India's relationship with the Talibani regime. It saw this regime as a regime which forwarded Pakistani strategic interest and negatively impacted India's strategic interest. But right now, the equations between Taliban and Pakistan is not as good as it was back in the 1990s or early 2000s, because now the relationship between Taliban and the Pakistan, they have deteriorated quite rapidly, and it is primarily driven by the issues of operation of the Pakistani entity of Taliban, that is Tehreek-e-Taliban, and it has created violence against the Pakistani state, particularly violence against the Pakistani army, and this is happening alongside the border regions, which is very near to the Durand line known as the Afghani-Pakistani border, right? So this violence that is conducted by Taliban and its entities in Pakistan against Pakistani state interests is the reason why the relationship between these two countries have deteriorated rapidly. Now, Pakistan, to ensure that India and Taliban and India and Afghanistan don't come so close to each other, it is trying to drive a wedge between India and Afghanistan, and India knows this for sure. And that is why between this widening rift that is happening between Taliban's 2.0 and Pakistan, India needs to have a communication line open with the current dispensation in Afghanistan, and that is Taliban. Therefore, India wants to prevent Afghanistan from becoming a sanctuary for anti-India terrorist groups, which happened quite effectively during the time 1996 to 2001, as many terrorists who actually participated in Afghani struggle against Russia and against America, they actually also prevented, or they actually came to India and caused mayhem in the regions of Jammu and Kashmir. And India wants to deny this happening again, and that is why it needs to keep a communication line open between itself and Taliban, and that is why India is trying to engage with Taliban now, right? Now, in this regard, let us understand what are the recent developments. Now, India realized one thing, that is, its stringent no-talk policy with Afghanistan and with Taliban was actually not very practical. Therefore, gradually you'll see India has tried to open some kind of lines of channels of communications between them. It started with the reopening of Indian embassy in Kabul that happened in 2024. Similarly, India had a meeting with the joint secretary level who is responsible for policy in Afghanistan, and he met with the then Taliban foreign minister, who is also the same person, that is Amir Khan Muttaqi. And after that, a very public meeting happened between India's foreign secretary Vikram Misri and Afghanistan acting foreign minister, that is Amir Khan Muttaqi, and this happened this year in January. And this is the screenshot. As you can see, the India's foreign secretary Vikram Misri, who you already know, he's meeting directly with the Afghani foreign minister who comes from Taliban. So this actually was the first official engagement at the secretarial level that happened from India's foreign secretary side and the foreign minister of Afghanistan. And this showed gradually India is trying to become more amenable to the having conversation with Taliban, right? Now this changed drastically. How? Because when Dr. S. Jaishankar had a phone call with the Afghani foreign minister, this was first ever ministerial level conversation happening between these two nations since 2021, and this is seen as a next logical step in the incremental outreach that has happened between the both countries, particularly from the side of India. Now this phone call is very notable because why? India faced a Pahalgam terror attack which was due to terrorists coming from Pakistan, and even Taliban regime, it unequivocally condemned this particular terror attack, and this was seen as an attempt by Taliban to become closer to India, especially at the time when its relations with Pakistan is at all-time low. That is why this is a very significant development from the perspective of relations between India and Pakistan, and more importantly from the perspective of relations between India and Taliban regime in Afghanistan. So in that regard, let us understand why has India actually become closer to Afghanistan and Taliban regime. Now, what is India's historical stand in Afghanistan? India has always held that it wants to take care interest of the Afghani people, right? And when it wants to take care of the interest of Afghani people, India has made all the efforts that is necessary in kind of providing them with food, in kinds of providing them with pesticides, in kind of providing them with medical supplies like vaccines, like medicines, and also other forms of aid in forms of forwarding the developmental project in Afghanistan. Even in last year's budget, Indian government made an allocation of 100 crore rupees to provide assistance to Afghanistan. So this can be seen as a calibrated and a gradual effort from Indian government to actually take care of the interest of not just India but also of Afghani people, right? Now let us understand why is India or should India actually engage with Taliban or not. Now there are two perspectives in this matter from the foreign policy experts, right? The first kind of experts, they actually prefer an idealist perspective, or rather they have an idealist approach to India having a relations with Afghanistan, and they say that Taliban, it continues even today to be an autocratic regime. It has very low regard for forwarding human rights, particularly with participation of women in the polity and the society of Afghanistan, and this is actually opposite to what India says or has it in its constitution, because India is a democratic country. It likes to interact with countries who have a democratic form of government. It likes to interact with countries who have a equality between men and women, and this is a situation which is not prevailing even today in Afghanistan. So why is India engaging with Afghanistan, particularly Taliban regime? This is an idealist perspective. Now you can see even Indian government has yet to recognize or is yet to recognize the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. Now, according to idealist perspective, if India continues to engage with Taliban, it provides or it risks India's moral stand in the global issues. India's moral stand has always been forwarding of democracy. It has always been forwarding of concepts like human rights, like equality, like fraternity, and all of this does not exist with the current dispensation in Afghanistan. So, according to idealist perspective, India should not engage with Taliban. But is it actually a smart thing to do as far as India's interest is concerned? The answer is no. So in that regard, let us also understand what the realists in the India's policy circles think. Now the realists, they highlight that China has actually engaged quite significantly by making investments and security agreements with Taliban. More importantly, it has signed a $540 million deal to extract oil from Afghanistan. And with power politics in South Asia continuously changing, particularly the development of Pakistan, Bangladesh and China axis, it is acting against India's interest. And if Kabul and Beijing axis, or the comfort level between the regimes in Kabul and Beijing, it becomes quite comfortable, it automatically would be a matter of concern as far as India is concerned. So therefore, India needs to take care of its interests, and therefore progressively it should engage more and more with whosoever is in Kabul. And who is in Kabul right now? It is the Taliban regime, right? So India, although it does not have the power to alter the politics and society of Afghanistan, but it can, in order to take care of its own interest, it can deal with whosoever is in Kabul. And right now it is the Taliban regime which is in power in Kabul. Therefore, in order to protect India's developmental interest, in order to protect its economic investment that it has already made in Afghanistan, and also to ensure regional security, particularly in states like Jammu and Kashmir and in northern part of the country, India needs to ensure that the Taliban regime is amenable to India's interest, that Taliban regime does not let any terror group prevail in Taliban and in Afghanistan, so that they negatively impact India, right? So this is the broader context why India is trying to engage more and more with Taliban regime, even if morally it does not justify, or it can't justify that move, right? So this is from a realist perspective. So whenever you are going to attempt a question relating to IR, you have to provide a big picture in your answer, because you can always put more and more facts, but that won't earn you more marks from the invigilator or the evaluator of the paper, right? Rather, when you provide a big picture, that is the realist picture why India is engaging with Taliban, you can expect more and more marks in your exams, right? Now, before concluding our today's discussion, let's see if you are able to solve this particular question. This is a question I've curated very similar to the one that appeared in 2023. It asked you the question, which of the following countries bordered Ukraine? So I've changed that question a little bit, and you have to identify which of the following countries share their land borders with country of Afghanistan. Let me know the correct answer in the comment section. And if you want to download these notes, these will be available on my Telegram channel that is called as ATS Live. So please do not forget to subscribe to this channel, and the notes will be available after the video ends. So this is all from my side for today. I'll see you again tomorrow. Until then, please have a very good night.